Hi, welcome to the AMAI Podcast. This last week, I was able to sit down with Jesika Harmon, who has done an incredible amount of research into the world of meditation and its benefits, specifically regarding to motherhood. And so I know if there's anything that you're going through, any challenge, any difficulty that you're facing in motherhood, I know there's something in this podcast that can help you. Let's take a look. Welcome, Jesika. I'm so grateful that you are here tonight. I'm really, really excited to learn from you. I feel like you have so much to share, so much knowledge, and I'm just really excited to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Tell us a little intro about yourself. Tell us how many children you have, your family, anything you want to say about a quick intro.
Sure. I'm married to Captain America, as my kids call him. He is better looking than Captain America, but
nice.
Husband that I don't deserve, but I'm so grateful for. 5 children. My oldest is almost 17, and I'm trying not to get nervous that we have such little time left with her at home.
Yes.
And then 14-year-old, 12-year-old, just barely 10-year-old, and a 6-year-old.
Wow.
So
exciting. Boys, girls? What?
3 boys, 2 girls.
3 boys, 2 girls?
And then 2 sweet boys in heaven.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah. I can't not say them, because if I don't, one of my children will. Oh, remember. Anyway, which is really sweet.
I love that.
Part of our family. Yeah.
Wow. That is so neat. You mentioned that you had lived, kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
Where have that journey taken you?
I have lived and loved so many places. After we graduated, we met senior year of college, got married just right after college, and did grad school at UNC in North Carolina, which part of my heart is still there. We loved it so much. Wow. We lived in Costa Rica for a little while, Chicago for a little while, Arizona for a while, and currently live in Utah, and we love it.
That is so neat. That is so neat. And outside the U.S., inside the I'm sure that was some adventures.
Yeah.
And you did that with kids.
We did. We had 2 at the time, and it was totally an adventure. It was awesome.
Was it awesome?
Yeah.
Would you do it again?
Oh yeah, 100%. It was harder than I expected. I had certain expectations of, I'm going to learn Spanish, and I'm going to, all these things that I thought, failing to realize when you have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, certain things are a little bit more difficult.
Littles
but
at that time.
it was still awesome.
Wow. That is so cool. Anything that you would suggest really quick for moms that want to live international or are living internationally?
I think having low expectations, as far as positive as that can sound, yes. just being open to what the experience is meant to be for you, not going into it thinking it's got to be this, it's got to be that, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Yeah, have ideas, have a bucket list, have goals. I'm not saying that, but when it's something that's so new, if it's a different language, if you're living, we were living, my little 1-year-old was learning to walk on this, rocky ground, that there weren't sidewalks. There was a road in front of our house, but he constantly had a goose egg on his head. Wow. I felt so bad, but just the little things.
It was the experience. It was part of the whole experience.
And they turn into memories that make a place magical. And so I think maybe lower expectations, be realistic with yourself. Don't try to throw a birthday party making foods that you make back home, because then they might fail.
It sounds like there's some
I was going to impress my whole neighborhood, throw this big birthday party for my son.
Wow.
Double fail, but it's okay.
And look, it sounds like you embraced it.
I totally did.
That is so cool. I can already tell from your personality that you're someone that will just roll with it. Let's just roll with it.
I think that's one part of motherhood that if you don't embrace, it makes it a lot harder.
That is really true. I have felt that way even with expectations in motherhood, where I feel like, especially before you have kids, you're like, I'm going to do this and I'm never going to do that. And then you become a mom and it's like, oh, this is why that one mom that I was thinking that wasn't a good idea. This is why she did that. And this is why
every single time I have made a judgment of another mom. Oh, my children will never
do that.
Oh, I will. They've all happened to me. So yeah.
Oh, and that's just the part of motherhood. And then you realize you get in it and it's like, okay, we're going to do what works. We're going to adapt. We're going to reiterate and try that again.
Totally.
And that's what I love, is that there's no, there are very few like hard fixes, you know, where that you can't adapt to, and you can't switch up, and you can't change to accommodate the family that you're in, you know? So I love that. That's so neat that you guys lived, you know, there, even with littles. Kudos to you. I'm impressed. I'm just really impressed.
No.
Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about why you feel passionate about motherhood. Why did you want to be here tonight? And what do you specifically feel like you want to share with these moms?
Well, I maybe should apologize if I cry at any point in this conversation, because it is
tears are sacred.
No, they are. Oh, that's a beautiful
space.
saying. Yeah. That's a beautiful saying. I did not grow up. Well, I grew up knowing I would probably be a mom. I did not grow up wanting to be a mom. That wasn't like, oh yeah, I'm going to graduate and I'm going to get married and be a mom. Yeah. That wasn't really my plan. Just because there were things I wanted to do, and I knew that would come eventually. Yeah. And it has become the most intense refiner's fire for me in the most beautiful way. It's almost like I feel like there are things that I could not have learned any other way than through motherhood. And it has made me so much better than I could have ever been as a person. Which I think everyone goes through life wanting to become something, wanting to be something, wanting to achieve something. Right. And I think they don't really think about how being a parent can help you in all of those ways. Totally.
Yes. That is amazing. That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Well, I think it's just really, I've just learned so much that I just feel like I look at women who complain all the time about how hard their kids and how hard this is and how hard that is, and just feel like I want to tell them a few things that could make it a little easier, just shifting some perspective to see the growth and the beauty, because there is so much in motherhood that if you look at this way, no one would want to do it. Right. But if you look at it this way, then you see why people are doing in vitro and adopting and doing whatever they can to have children, because it is the most beautiful thing.
Wow. You seem to have compared to so many women out there, a very unique perspective on this idea of it being beautiful, even in the hard. Because I feel like there's a lot of women where, you know, it's like, oh, well, yeah, when my kid hugs me and when they tell me thank you and all this stuff, it's beautiful. And then there's all this hard. And I feel like what you're trying to share is that you can see all of it as beautiful. You can see the easy and the difficult all in a more positive light, a light that can serve us better as moms. Can you go into that and share with us how you got to that point?
Yeah, sure. I think like I said at the beginning, I've just had a lot of experience the hard way. Just a lot of chances to reflect on how I was with my older children that I pray every day I didn't ruin.
I think all of our kids, we're imperfect too. You know, it's like, I know. We're all imperfect. We're all doing our best.
So true. But just when you look back on some of those experiences and you see the growth in yourself, and then you're able to try things a little differently, and you're able to use this and use that and glean this and glean that, and just see okay, there are things that can make this thing called motherhood easier. Yes. You can teach your child how to teach themselves to go to sleep. You can feed them certain foods that will make them less crazy. Yes. You can there are things that can make it easier on yourself. But then also being able to find some meaning in the suffering, not the suffering, but some meaning, some growth in the hard. Right. That is just life-changing. It's magical.
Wow. So tell us, when you first started, you kind of say this journey of when you first started to now, what were some of those experiences that you feel like really helped you switch gears or change your mindset from the beginning to, your daughter's 17 now. Mm-hmm. So, a mom of 17 years, that's incredible.
Well, there's so many mothers that I have looked to as examples, first of all, that I think is such a beautiful gift that we have as women, that there's always someone older. that we can look to, that we can watch, that we can glean from.
Yes.
And I have some really amazing women in my life, aunts, grandparents, my mother-in-law.
That's neat.
But I think, sadly, it's only been 4 or 5 years that I have really been able to shift some of my perspective. I think I learned things all along. There was a lot of things that I learned, and I read books, and I, would try different things as a mother to be better and grow and develop. But I think it wasn't until I started getting into meditation that I really started. It was almost like my growth was like, on this steady incline. And then it was just been like, really? Just like as I'm just like mind-blowing discoveries as I'm changing myself. It's been probably the biggest help.
I would love to dive into this. Okay, so 4 years ago, how did you discover this path? How did you start on this journey? What got you to that point?
Sure. So really it started with the first little kind of toe dip. A friend of mine said, hey, do you want to do this 40-day meditation challenge? I was like, oh, meditation. I love yoga. I love movement. That probably would be something really nice to try. It just seemed like, sure, that would be great.
Had you done any meditation before this?
No.
Any study, any... Okay.
No, besides what you do at a yoga class. I feel like a lot of times at the end, it's, there's a little bit of meditation, guided thoughts.
Right.
So I said, sure, that sounds great. And as I was going through this 40-day challenge by a woman named Brooke Snow, and she started explaining things about spiritual creation before physical creation, about our thoughts, how much they influence our bodies and our futures, she just was teaching me these new things that were really opening my eyes in a different way. And I found as I would sit in just a little bit of meditation once a day, I was able to tap into that calm a little bit easier. And this was right before COVID. So I had done some homeschooling for a few years with my children, but we were then in a place where I felt really good about I kind of just take it a year at a time and have been doing a variety of things. But at that point, my kids were in school. And it was very shortly after this 40-day meditation challenge that all my kids came home. Oh, yeah. And doing homeschooling is very different than doing online school where everyone has their own device and their teacher's expecting this and that, and they've got to be on at this time. And it took less than a week of that before I was like, okay, we're just doing our own homeschool.
Yes. And I've
going
heard,
back to...
even in that, I've heard that's the worst of both worlds of online school dictated homeschooling.
Totally.
And I know so many women that are like, oh yeah, I did the homeschooling during COVID. It was horrible. And then I hear moms that are like, it was the best thing ever. I'm like, what's the difference? And one was dictated by the district.
Totally
this is what you have to do. And one was like, we did everything our own. Yes. And we just had this beautiful experience. So yeah, it's interesting.
Totally
so you unplugged. You're like, okay, we're done. We're going to do this on our own.
Yes. But I feel like it was a little gift that I got right before all my kids came home to just be a little bit more centered. I did have my youngest at home. He was little, but it was just, I think, a little bit of preparation. And then it was fast forward. But my friend and I decided, let's just keep doing it. Let's just hold each other accountable. Just try to do some meditation each day.
After the 40 days, you mean?
Yeah, so after the 40-day challenge.
40 days concluded.
Concluded, the beginning of the year. And then we just decided, let's just keep touch.
Can you tell me a little bit more? Is this a 3-minute meditation? Was this a 10-minute meditation per day? Because it was every day, right?
It was every day. It was really, as I remember, because it's been a few years, it was just do something each day. There were some guided meditations we could choose from. You could just pick a song and just sit kind of in.
Okay, so this was
stillness.
really short. This wasn't an hour to just these are short. And it made that big of a difference.
It did. It did. And which was surprising. Just a few minutes of calm that I'm not thinking of something or studying something. I mean, all good things.
Or worrying about something.
Right. But just to be in just kind of some stillness. And so we kind of kept trying to do that year. And it got to the fall when my youngest was doing just a couple days of preschool with some friends. It felt like a good thing for him. So I was going to have a little bit of time on my hands for the first time in 15 years. And I just started having these feelings. I had a list of things I think I want to do this when my kids are in school or when I have a chunk of time to be able to pursue something else. Yeah. I was just kind of looking at my list and thinking and pondering and praying and what's next? And as I kind of went down some different paths, doors just kind of kept shutting. Like, should I do this? Oh no. Should I get my master's? Oh no. It was just like, and I just, for whatever reason, I think it was probably after I had done some meditation, it was like, what about meditation? Like, people record these guided meditations. It would be really cool to be able to facilitate some meditation for someone. Like, it's been so life-giving for me.
For you, that you could continue that gift almost.
Totally. So I just kind of Googled top 5 meditation certification programs. And this Sura Flow online certification program, like, like really
this
like
is it. Like, this is what you need
it was
to do.
like it found me. It was just like it was. I need
That is
to do
so
this.
cool that there's see. I didn't even know this.
No.
I didn't even know that there's like that is so neat.
It was. I mean, and as I kind of looked into it and the cost, and I mean, it was like a 300-hour. It was going to take 6 to 9 months. Like,
Wow.
the coursework plus the live class meetings. I mean, so just like,
Wow,
okay,
it's an
can I do
investment.
this?
Yeah.
I don't have like all day, every day. I just have these small chunks of time.
Right.
But it just really lined up and felt so right. My husband was on board, and it was such a beautiful journey. It was going from just a little bit of meditation each day to increasing my minutes every week to where I was meditating for an hour every single day. Wow. On top of the homework, on top of the live classes, guiding, practicing with people in my class, met some amazing people. I mean, our class was, someone from Hong Kong, someone from India, someone from England, someone from Connecticut. We were from all over.
That is
and
neat.
we're able to connect in such a beautiful way through Zoom. This was during COVID, and it was so beautiful, but it really broke me down because I have never, ever sat with my own mind for that amount of time. Ever.
And really, in our society, who does? We are so programmed to go, 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 go.
Yep.
All the time. Even if people have a minute to just sit, and here's a phone, here's a tablet, here's my earbuds, we rarely are with just our own thoughts.
And even if you're trying to focus, you have ding for this, pop up for that. Like the attention economy is getting better and better at trying to tell us where to focus, where to shop, what to think. And it really opened my eyes to just the beauty of stillness and thought, but also really opened my eyes to why people are so afraid of it. Because your phone acts as a Band-Aid. Yes. I don't have to face my hard, sad feelings. I don't have to face this situation. I can just scroll. I can just numb it all with Netflix or sugar or social media, whatever it is, that I just began to see our society as so many people who need to heal.
And true deep healing, actual healing.
Which the only way to get to the other side of something is to go through. You have to feel all the feelings. You have to, for anyone that has done any sort of healing, you know that. So yet
it's so hard that our world has made it so easy to put that Band-Aid on. Like, if it was harder to like find that Band-Aid and to put it on, but it's right at our fingertips. It takes almost nothing to just mask our fears and our problems over and over and over again. Totally. And you wonder why there's so many people that are genuinely discontent with life. And it's because we're really not. Well, first of all, I don't believe that, I can't speak for the rest of the world, but for Americans, I don't believe that we know how to grieve well.
100%.
And I feel like we need to learn how to do that. And when we don't grieve, we don't process. When we don't process, then we just carry that pain and that weight and that burden through every day of our lives. Yeah. And I totally believe that, like, you have to go through it. And I feel like that's really powerful, because even understanding that that's the way to the other side maybe can help people realize it doesn't matter how long I spend on this, or this. I won't truly heal unless I'm willing to go through it.
And I think what people don't understand too is it like keeps your life at this like mediocre place.
Yes.
Because if you're not willing to feel the lows and experience that side, generally you can't ever get to the high, to the joy, to the magic, to the power. Like, you can't get to the other end either. And they just don't even, that's what you said, like the discontent, just kind of like
just like
blah attitude,
and that's like
towards life.
the whole life. And then I feel like we're just yearning as a society to feel anything. That's why you get these shows that I feel like are just like saturated with emotion. And like I look at some of them and it just, even for me, it's so unappealing because I can see like you're just trying to get your audience to feel anything because they are numb. Yeah. Most of, I feel like I should say most. I should say there are so many people that are suffering that go to choosing to feel numb because that's the easiest. And yet there are so many better ways, and there's so many ways that I feel like can help people out of that numbness without throwing something really crazy on a screen in front of them to trigger some sort of emotion. But at least like for them, it's like, at least I'm feeling something. And I've been in that state where it's like, I don't want anything. I want to block everything out. You put those heart walls up to protect your heart. And then you just live in this like numb silo. And it's horrible. It's a horrible way to live. And feels so lonely.
And honestly, I think that is one of the things that makes motherhood even harder, because you're living in a place where you don't have as much to give and you don't have as much space to receive, right? Which allows that connection to be even harder with your children, which is one of the parts that brings so much joy.
Yes, that is so true. So I feel like if anything, like moms are the ones that need to hear this, to know that there are ways through this. So here you were able to get to this. Took this whole training. Yeah. You got your certification, and then what happened?
The plan was kind of just like, then I could record meditations, just do guided meditations for people. And the training that I did, this Suraflow Liberate program that I would recommend to anyone, not that wants to like be a meditation guide or a meditation coach, but to just
go through that
be
process.
able to heal and facilitate healing for other people, even just in your example. Like there's so many beautiful parts about that program. But it was also training us to be meditation coaches, which was kind of this like, let's a meditation coach. Like, what does that mean? Is it like a life coach? Like there's a million life coaches out there, right? Right. Which is so wonderful to have support, and they, all of those different types of support are so, so beautiful. But I found myself so passionate about being able to help someone in that setting where my job is I'm not a therapist. I'm not a coach in the sense that like, I don't tell you what to do. I don't tell you what to try. My goal is to help guide you to your deeper knowing, to help connect you to your power source, because the answers are within you. And if we can just shed some of those layers of healing, like you won't need me anymore. You know how to do it, to tap into that power and that healing and be set up with the tools that you need to succeed in any challenge that life throws at you. Wow, and just found myself becoming so passionate about that as I did some pro bono clients as part of my training, and just like seeing women learn these super simple things and have it change their life.
Wow. That's so empowering. And I think we're living in a day and age where I feel like there is so much knowledge, which is amazing, but I feel like we're so easy to go to an external source. It's like, okay, something's wrong with me, so that person has to know, or this doctor has to know, or this, which they can. And there's so much knowledge out there, and I'm not saying not to use that, but I do think that there's some deep, deep healing that can only be healed from the inside out and not from the outside in.
Totally.
And I think that's what you're trying to help them tap into that inner vessel of healing.
And to take what you have learned. I read, there's amazing books out there from people who have researched and studied and experienced, but to take these different, books on parenting, for example, and to have this thing work with this child, but it doesn't work with that child.
Yes.
So to be able to pull my resources and then sit in a space where I can visualize my child. What am I not seeing? Like, what does she need right now? And to have the ideas come. I could share an example. Do you want an example?
Yes, I'd love that.
An example, I feel like I share a lot, but it was probably the most poignant in making this clear in my mind. My 10-year-old daughter, from the time she was probably 4 till she was, whenever I started doing this, 7. So hard. Like she's got this fiery personality, very stubborn, knows what she wants, and mom knows nothing in her mind. Like we're practicing the piano. Oh, that's an F sharp, sweetie. No, it's not, mom. Oh, I've actually been playing the piano for 30 years. It's an F sharp. No, mom, my teacher said, you know, like, and that it was like that with everything at that stage.
Ooh.
And we would,
and you homeschooled her? I like,
oh, no. She was 2 when I was homeschooling my other kids. So when she was doing nap time, that was our main homeschooling time.
Okay.
I did. Well, that's another story. Or my homeschooling with her. But
I feel like we even have
we can ask that after.
Because I'm amazed.
No.
Because there are those personalities that it just like click and it just is like
for whatever reason. But it would usually end with both of us in tears, which is so sad to admit. But I felt like I was trying everything to get through to her, to help her to see like what.
And you're like, I'm here to help you. I feel like there's so many times where it's like they flip that enemy bit, and it's like, I'm not your enemy. I really am not your enemy. But it's like that power struggle gets in, and it's gridlock, and then it's like,
and it was like every time. So I'm in the middle of my training, right? And we just happened to be learning about visualization, and which is really interesting. Like, note to self, if you're ever trying to learn something, God is really good at giving you experiences to practice what you're learning, which I feel like, honestly, like both of my daughters, we're just really different. I'm really, well, the younger one, she's probably a lot like me, and that's why we've had some anyway.
Yes.
But my boys have just been really easy in the sense of like, they just love me. They appreciate me. They love my food. They, just like all the things. My girls have just been a little bit more challenging, but I see them as total gifts because of what I've been able to learn from raising them. So we have the piano scenario. Okay. Both end in tears as I'm just like, I don't know what else to say, as she's like falling apart, having a fit, like, and it's just like, okay, we're done with piano practicing for today. So the next morning in my meditation, I am a believer, so prayer is part of what happens for me in meditation. Okay. And I just said, what am I not seeing? And I visualized us at the piano. Our piano is kind of down in the main floor, and there's a banister that goes up, and you can kind of look down into the piano room. Okay. So I just pictured myself up here by the banister, looking down at us sitting at the piano. What am I not seeing? Like, what do I need to know about her? What am I missing? And I sat there for a little while. Like, please just show me. What does she need? And just sat there looking at us, kind of role play, imagining, reenacting what we, kind of the scenario from the day before. And the words that came to mind were, tell her I hear you. It's like, okay, I hear you. That's easy enough. I can say that to her. So I just practiced a few times, just like as if I were holding her face, just looking at her face, saying, I hear you. I hear you. I just practiced that a few times that morning. Lo and behold, later that day, we had a chance to practice. And she came home from school and she wanted some treat, and health is really important in our home. And sweetie, we don't have treats when we get home. We pick a healthy snack. And she just starts getting all worked up and throwing a fit or whatever. And I started getting worked up. And then came to mind my practice from that morning. I hear you. And I just kind of got down on her level and I looked at her and I said, I hear you. Do you know what she did? What? Her body literally, like totally relaxed.
Really?
And I just said it again. I hear you. You really want a treat, but a healthy snack is better for our body. And she goes, okay, Mom.
Was your mind like...
It was. And it was just this like,
that's incredible.
She just hasn't for 4 years felt heard. Even if I am right, even if she knows she's wrong, she had all of this emotion, all of this that she just wasn't feeling heard. Wow. I use it all the time now with several of my children. I hear you. And it diffuses the emotion really quickly. Wow. And it allows me to be in a space where it doesn't get to the power struggle, even if there is a little bit of friction for a minute, because they still can't have what they want, or they still have to do what I need them to do.
Right, but that you're empathizing with that emotion, and that's what that that like need of just to be heard. Because like you said, you know, if you're, I mean, I'm sure she's a very smart person, and so I bet in her mind, I bet she knows, like, I know my mom's right. And that's when you know, like, okay, there's something deeper. Like, what is it? And for you to be able to discover that and to use it that day, and for it to change your life and probably change that relationship. I mean,
1,000%. Wow. 1,000%. So visualization is an example of one of the tools of mindfulness and meditation that I use, that I teach, because I love thinking of it like a tool belt, because literally if you're building a house, you can't use a hammer where you need a saw. Yeah. You've got to have different things to pull at for different challenges. And
that is
neat. Really, really amazing to see.
And I feel like there's so much power that comes from visualizing that. I remember, years ago, what was it? 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And I remember,
great book.
Yeah. Learning, you know, the space between the stimulus and the response, and realizing, you know, there's a chance of agency. And there's so many times we think like, no, there's not. Like you know, someone says something mean and I'm going to be mad by it or offended by it, blah, whatever. And towards like, actually, it doesn't have to be that way. Like there is a space between a stimulus and response. And I've used that idea. You know, I have not studied meditation myself. I do use different forms of meditation that I love doing and using, but as far as like studying, I haven't, you know, that's amazing. Just the in-depth of where you've gone to this point in meditation is so neat. But I remember there was this time I have a daughter who's also very, very headstrong, and I remember just reacting over and over again in ways that I did not like. And I would end these situations and just feel like horrible about myself, because I'm like, that's not how I want to react. But when you're in that moment and you just get that flare of emotion and it's so hard to just calm down. And I remember finally using visualization and thinking in detail, because it says like think in detail in this situation. So I visualized her doing something that would, you know, just flare my emotions in detail, like thinking of her doing that, and then in detail thinking what I wanted my correct response to be, my ideal response. Not saying that I would be like that, not saying that would be like 100% I could change overnight in a minute, but thinking through my ideal response in detail. Guess what? Next time it happened, I actually changed behavior. It was amazing to be like, oh, there is space to grow if we can learn the skills to do it.
That's probably the most used quote in the workshops that I teach, is that quote by Viktor Frankl, because I love how and coming from him, who was not just a concentration camp survivor, but he was a doctor before going into that. He worked with patients, suicide victims, people where he was trying to understand what was going on
in the psyche, what's happening.
Exactly. Yeah. So then having his experience in the concentration camp, coming out to a place where he felt more equipped to help people. And that right there, that the space between the stimulus and the response, you have that space to choose your response. And the response that you choose determines your freedom and your growth or your lack thereof.
Right.
And I think that's what I love about what meditation and mindfulness do, is it almost like it makes that space bigger. Because in the moment when I'm aware of something that my child does that is going to turn me, flip a switch, I'm going to react emotionally some way.
Yeah.
If I have practiced, like you said, visualizing, or if I've practiced breathing in a way where I know, okay, I need just a minute. And I do this with my kids all the time. usually after I respond the wrong way. And then I'll be like, okay, just a minute, you guys. And I'll just take a few deep breaths, like, okay, can we try that again? And
that's so neat, because that they're being able to see you self-regulate and say, oh, this is what it looks like. Like, that's so amazing that you're giving them that example.
Well, I felt bad about it for a while, just like, they're seeing me mess up over and over and over. But as I thought about it, I came to just that like, no, actually this is good.
Yes.
Because they're going to be in these same situations. And to know, I heard how old was it? My 12-year-old, I think he was 9 or 10 at the time. He was with some friends in the back and they were talking like, oh, my mom always gets so mad about this. Or, oh, my mom. And he said something like, oh yeah, my mom always gets so mad about this. But then she stops and she takes some deep breaths. And then she he totally...
That is so great.
Like, hey, I think that's good.
He's learning.
But
that is so cool.
I think it is helpful for our children to see us growing and learning.
It is
and
true.
Having to do over and having to try it again and having to come back the next day and say, how I responded last night was really not my best self. Yes. What I intended to say was, or I just got really caught up in the emotion of it. I was thrown off by your choice. I'm sorry.
And just to say, I'm sorry. Like, I feel like that's huge for kids. And that doesn't mean that, they're going to respect you less or da-da-da-da-da. I feel like there's even a higher level of respect because it's showing, oh, they're willing to take responsibility and willing to apologize when they have done something wrong,
And there's not a perfection standard. Yeah. Like, I'm human too. I'm still learning. I'm still growing, which I think is such a beautiful realization that we can grow our whole lives. Yeah. We can still be learning things when we're 80, when we're 90. Like, that's, I think, really exciting. You're never pigeoned into a certain place, certain mentality, certain nothing. Like, neuroplasticity is real. Like, our brains can change. It just takes some practice, which I think is so empowering.
It is. And I feel like there's so many people where it's like, ooh, I'll go to college and I'll do this. And then, I should find the quote because I heard it was some crazy quote. I'll have to look it up. But it was saying after people graduate from college, it was the amount of books that an adult reads. And it was incredibly low, like shockingly low to me. Like that an adult will read cover to cover after they graduate from college. Wow. And I was like, is that true? Is that real? And so I don't want to quote the number because I obviously want to have the study, but either way, it's low. It's low of how many people choose to keep learning. And I think that in my opinion, there's a lot of stagnation and you feel that way when you're not progressing, right?
Totally.
Really quick on when you were saying, having your kids see your example. I think a funny part of that when you were talking is, so I'm the very youngest in my family and my mom was 41 when she had me, which is amazing. I get so grateful of the fact that, she chose not to have an abortion and that she chose to have me at that age, and I'm
knowing it would be harder on her body,
knowing that she would be likely called a grandma at my senior graduation. And she was. Yeah. People thought she was my grandmother. And I thank her and I have so much respect for her. It's so funny though, because by the time I came along, she had figured, like you said, so many of the things that we figure out on like first kid and second kid, we have all these chances to experience that. My mom was this beautiful example of, in my opinion, like virtually complete self-control, which is amazing. But at the same time,
you didn't have the example of the mess ups.
I didn't, exactly. And so I remember being a mom and like, you, as you're raised, you go to your default of, as you're parenting or as you get older in life, you go to the default of how you were raised. That's generally, that's the most common reaction is, okay, how was I raised? And so I get to this point and, my kids tantruming, in the grocery store. And I remember like literally drawing a blank, like, I don't know how my mom did this because she never lost her cool. And like, I'm completely like at my wit's end. Like and I could not like, what do I do? Because my mom never got to this point. I never saw my mom just get so worked up and just like, I don't know what to do. And so it was, I think there is, even though she was this beautiful example, I think there is also beauty to showing how to go through that, how to go through that emotional regulation.
Yeah.
You know, and so just like, oh, you're always emotionally regulated. So
my children have definitely not had a perfect example. They've had lots of experiences to see how you can do over.
How you can do over. And that is so important.
Yeah.
That is so important for them to see that. Wow. Okay. So I want to hear more about this journey. So you go through this program and you're like, I want to help. I want to help women do this. Is that your target audience is women? Yeah. Okay.
I think especially where that's the stage I'm in, motherhood, womanhood, I just can relate so much. And I mean, of course, I love teaching and presenting and doing workshops with anyone and everyone, but there is a special connection I think I have with women. I mean, as you know, like talking to someone who's in your shoes, who's in the trenches with you, that can understand whether they're a few years ahead of you or behind you with ages of children, like you can still relate.
You still
on a
are
level.
like, you give each other the look of like, I see you.
Totally.
I hear you. I'm in it with you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's just been so rewarding. I joke with people sometimes, like motherhood, I think is the most thankless job. Like there's no one telling you, good job. Oh my goodness, how you just kept your cool just barely. That was so good.
Awesome.
Like, Mom, you're so, you know, like my older kids are at a really sweet spot now where they do like, oh, Mom, this is such a good dinner. Or oh, Mom, I love that so much. Like that's been really sweet.
And I think that's where it's like, it does come.
It does come. It totally comes. But most of the time you get the like, oh, Mom, you're so mean. Oh, Mom, you're so, you know, whatever.
Why don't
like,
you let me do this? Why are you being so strict?
That's the majority of the time. But meditation coaching, I feel, is like the most life-giving work I could ever imagine. Like I'll end a session with a woman I'm working with and I'll just sit there like, thank you so much. Like, how do I get to do this? Because you watch in real time almost someone's life changing, them reacting and responding to a certain situation completely differently than they did before. And they're in tears just telling you like, this is so beautiful that I can have this situation that's still the same as it was before, but I can approach it and look at it in a completely different way.
Whoa.
It was so, so amazing.
That is neat. And how you can use that in each one of your children's lives. Like to be able to teach them and give them these tools that you had 4 years ago that they can have for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
Like that is priceless.
It really is.
So can you tell us a few of these tools that you feel like are the most impactful for mothers?
Yeah. Yeah. The biggest maybe wake up or epiphany that I had just this year, I was thinking back, I was teaching a class and I was using a picture of me with my third child when he was a baby. So my kids are like 4, 2 and newborn. Yeah. Kind of, I would say maybe one of the hardest stages when like everyone's little and no one can do barely anything for themselves. It's emotionally taxing. It's physically taxing. Like it's you're hard. Really stretched as a mom. And I grew up, I'm the oldest, and had a younger sister just under me who was just really good with babies, really good with animals. And I just wasn't. I would hold a baby, they'd cry. She'd hold a baby, they'd calm down. Animals, I just like started noticing these things, but I didn't realize till just recently that I was telling myself those things. Oh, I'm just not good with babies. Oh, animals don't really like me. Oh, so I had my first baby and was like, what do I do? Why don't I have that fifth sense? Why don't that's just kind of how I was. Well, I guess I just have to figure this out. Oh, my husband, he's so good at calming the baby. I'm so grateful I married a man that could do what I'm not really good at. And like, I've looked back now on all the things I was telling myself subconsciously. Whoa. I wasn't looking in the mirror and saying like you're not natural at this, it was just like
playing through your thoughts,
that subconscious playing through my mind, and just had this coolest, like, it wasn't that I wasn't very good or wasn't very natural. It wasn't that I mean, yes, obviously we do have, my sister was naturally better with babies maybe, right. But to have that moment of realization, how impactful and powerful our thoughts are, And now having done a lot of the research, read a lot of the research, that literally brain studies show that 75 to 98% of all of the physical problems we have are due to our thought life. So only 2 to 25% are due to our genetics and our environment.
Wow.
Because every single time you think a thought, it sends an electromagnetic current through your body. So if it's a negative thought, it's sending something negative in your body.
Right.
If it's a positive thought, it's sending something positive to your body.
I totally believe that.
Like,
I've seen people's lives change because of their thoughts.
Which is one of those things that until you try it, until you actually like, okay, become aware of a thought that I'm thinking, whether I'm like consciously thinking it or not, like it's back there, it's going.
Yes.
And to be able to choose a different thought and try that out
and see if it works. Yeah. I can like hands down experience. I have a really close friend, and she had major autoimmune disorder when she was actually engaged. Before that, like in high school, she had Epstein-Barr, which is like mono but worse, and just sickly like her whole life, and just so sad. And then she gets this crazy autoimmune disorder, ends up having her spleen taken out and brain surgery and all these issues. They ended up finding out it was ITP, which is pretty much like idiopathic, something like we don't know what it is. And then she just kept struggling until she met with a counselor, and she's like, I've just always been like this. I'm just, this, and I've had all these hard things, and I'm just weak. And the counselor was the one that said, wait, you're saying that you're weak, but everything that I hear you saying is that you've lived through it. Like you've overcome it. You have lived through an autoimmune disorder that almost killed you, and you didn't die, which means you're strong. And she just completely changed her mental framework of saying, you've been telling yourself you're weak your whole life, but actually this proves to me, and this needs to prove to yourself, that you're actually strong. And in those like few counseling sessions helped her reprogram her thought process of, I'm sick, I have a bad immune system, I'll always have a bad immune system, I'll always all these thoughts, to I went through that and I lived. That means I'm strong. That means I can have an immune system that can fight this off. That literally changed her life from being sick all the time, Jessica, all the time, to hardly, like I would say rarely ever sick. It's incredible.
And honestly, all you have to do is try it, to experience it. That can take you to a completely different place regarding anything in your life. And I think this one has been the most life-changing in motherhood, because I've realized certain things that I'm saying about my children. I walked in to my daughter's second grade class, parent teacher conference with her teacher.
Okay.
And I walk in and she says, "You're Quinn's mom. Oh, she is just the golden child of the classroom. She is always respectful. She is always on task. She's going on and on." And I'm looking at her like, are we talking about the same child? I literally said 3 times out loud, I'm so glad she's like that for you, because at home she's my hardest child. Oh, I'm so glad she's good for you. At home she's my hardest child. Like I literally said that out loud. I walked out of that classroom and broke down in tears, because I realized I was pinning her as my hardest child. I was seeing her as my hardest child. And it was like this message from above that was like, you're doing this to yourself.
Whoa.
And so I went home in my journal and made a plan. And I decided I was going to start calling her my golden child. She has kind of this like light brown, it's golden in the summer hair. She has like light brown eyes. I always would tell her like, you have golden eyes. So it was like this perfect, like, okay, my golden child. And I decided I was going to write down every night one way that she was my golden child that day. And
because then your brain is searching to find it.
Exactly. So in the morning, in my meditation, I would just 3 times, like just picture her face and say, you are my golden child. And just picture her little face saying that phrase, like, oh, I was writing down 2 or 3 things every night. I was finding all sorts of things to support her as my golden child. Like I brought that teacher flowers the next week. I was like, you have changed my relationship with my child because of how she saw Quinn.
Saw her.
Yes. Which I
That's beautiful.
like feel so sad when I reflect on that story, besides being so grateful, because I wasted so much time. And yet
labeling of
and
like
so
this
yes,
just default label.
Yes. And even
this is
literally just last week realized I was doing it about a couple other kids. Like, oh, he's always da 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 da. Oh, she's, my teenager does a little back talk, and in my mind, not aware of it until I sat down and thought about it, but like, oh, to be expected was the thought. That doesn't do us any good as mothers.
Wow.
And so to be able to have a mantra about, something that I'm looking for, I mean, if you want to go into the science of it, we actually have a reticular activating system. Maybe you know about.
I do, and I know this part, and I think this is so good to share because I don't think people realize this part of it, where what we tell ourselves, our brain will go out and find whatever
support
it needs to validate the thought process. And I think it's incredibly important to go into that. Can we just go into that?
Sure.
Really
Briefly,
okay.
You have the back of your brain stem, something called your reticular activating system, which basically acts as a filter. So if there's something that you want to focus on, something that you're looking for, your brain will kind of focus out or filter out what it deems as unimportant.
Right.
So for an example I like to use a lot is if I'm on the market for a new house, we're going to sell our house, we're looking to buy a new one. I could probably tell you how many homes there are for sale between my house and the local grocery store I frequent. But my neighbor, who isn't looking to buy a house or selling, if you asked her, she could
be like,
probably not think of any. I don't think there's any homes for sale. Because even though she's passed those same for sale signs, her brain is kind of like, oh, notice, but that's not important.
Need to be a part of my,
So it sounds cliche when you hear the phrase, you find what you're looking for. But literally,
but it's real.
Your brain is going to find support for what you're telling it. She's my hardest child at home. Oh, she just hit her brother. Oh, I know, and I'm not noticing
and this
the great things that she's doing because my brain, that part of my brain doesn't have emotion, doesn't have feeling. It's just doing its job like a machine. So we can use that to our benefit by finding a mantra, finding an affirmation, an I am statement about myself. If I'm constantly putting myself down, and as a mother, like when you have low self-esteem, it just bleeds out into everything you do. The biggest gift we can give ourselves is to look at the mirror and say, I am grateful for my body. Yes. My hands work. They can hold my child. They can read books. My legs get me where I need to go every day. My smile, my hug, the things
my
that
heart
like
pumps, how many gallons of blood per day for me to keep living,
And those positive thoughts, once they send those positive electromagnetic currents, that's why gratitude works so well. It like sparks the desire to have more of that. So once you go down that path of positivity and truth, it's easier to keep practicing it because you get those feel good dopamine hits that we need.
Right. And I think at the beginning, sometimes it's hard to reprogram because if you think about it, the synapses in our brain, what we're using a lot, those neurotransmitters are just firing so fast, and to disconnect that and reprogram can take some time, but it's so worth it because it can be life-changing. Even when you mentioned I am statements, I think I am statements are really important, and I think a lot of people are like, oh, say all these positive I am statements, but I don't think people realize how many times they say I am statements in the negative. I am tired. I'm just so busy. 100%. I'm just so fill in the blank. Even to the point, and I had this thought, I can't remember, a few months ago, where I was like, a person that I know, they have celiac disease. And they didn't say I have celiac. They said, oh, I'm celiac. I'm like, when have we ever said I'm a disease? Like that's not good for the mental wherewithal. That's not good for the mental psyche. We are not a disease. we may have a disease, but we are not a disease. And I think even just being so carefully aware of where you're using I am statements and it's powerful. What it does to the brain is powerful. And so for me, I'm not perfect at it, but I try instead of to say like, I'm tired, say, I feel tired. Yes. Feeling is different than I am. Like the core of my being is versus feeling. Like there's a separation there that I think is important. Yeah, so just as important to say good I am statements, be so aware of how many I statements, that you're saying that
and how you're projecting things onto your children. Oh, he's so shy. Oh, I mean, even a toddler, you think they don't understand, but if you're telling your friend, he is always into everything. Oh, she is just so messy. Oh, he is so lazy. Like you think they don't notice, but it gets in there in a programmed way where they start to see themselves as that, and they don't compute it as being positive or negative. It's almost just like this is what I am. This is what I do. This is how I am. We have so much power as parents to speak about our children in ways that can build them like nothing else can.
Yes. And I feel like parents need to see that and not feel like it's something bad because they will be somehow like bragging about their kids. I feel like so many times someone will say something positive about a child and it's like, oh, and then immediately a parent will downplay it. And, like you'll get some sort of advice and we just naturally do that because we don't want to be like, you know what? Yeah. My kid is like that. I'm very grateful for that. I'm very grateful at how caring, loving, smart, whatever it is. So even just being able to give ourselves that like space to be like, our kids are going through a world that is harder than any world we ever imagined that they would have to go through. And they need as much bolstering and encouragement that they possibly can. And I'm not talking the fake,
That's what I was just going to say. There's a difference between like, oh, he is the best and you did the best job on you're the, that
where
there's
it's
a difference.
Fake self-esteem where it's like, I'm just going to dawdle praises at you all day. And they know that it's not real, but true truth, and even understanding, when you praise a kid, there's the do box and the be box. Have you heard of this?
Totally.
And where it's like, how are you giving them that praise? Is it fundamental to their character or is it tangential, and I feel like there's so much of that in our society, like, oh, you're so cute, I love your handbag. And it's like, that's great, like, hey, at least you're complimenting. I think we need way more compliments in broad society, but instead of, wow, I was so impressed at how you treated that person or how you showed love or how you cared or how
I can tell you tried really hard. I love the effort you put into that. It's the things that will help them become more of that.
Yes. I love that. Wow. That is so powerful. And it makes me really want to think about what I'm telling myself and even going through. I think it would be a really good idea to go through your relationships. Like I want to go through each one of my relationships with my kids, outside, inside, everything, and say, what do I tell myself about this person?
Yes. As you're going to a holiday party, at your in-laws, as you're going to meet with one of your colleagues, as you're, like, what is that internal dialogue?
What am I already saying?
Mm-hmm. Life-changing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you're saying that this is the hardest world anyone has ever had to live in, like when you think of what's thrown at our kids, I think that's another reason why I'm so passionate about mindfulness and meditation, is it's really just helping someone see the power of stillness. Because when we're giving our kids phones when they're 11, 12, 13, 14, like when they
sometimes 8, 7, 6,
don't even say, I know, but like they should not have to deal or have any of that at those ages, but a lot of them do. So the biggest gift we can give them is to teach them how to put it away, silence it, and just be okay with being with themselves. I mean, my highest recommendation is to not give it to them as long as possible.
Right.
But if they have the device, if they have, whatever it is that they're already using or dealing with, like to help them see, we're going on a hike. We're leaving our phones. We're just going to be out in nature, like some space. Yes. You're feeling really sad. Let's talk. Yes, it's okay to cry. It's okay to be angry. It's okay. Feel those feelings. Don't go to your phone. Don't start scrolling. Don't start texting your friends.
Don't put a fake Band-Aid.
Take some time to like feel it. I think when we can't pattern that or experience that as parents, how do we ever expect to teach our children?
Kids. And they need it so
parents,
much.
That's one of the statistics that's out there, is it's the parents' addiction to social media that has a greater indication or, what's the word I'm looking for?
Yes, like effect.
Thank you. On a child's potentiality of having depression or anxiety. Ooh. If that doesn't tell us something, I don't know what does.
That's really interesting. And I think that's how it is in probably a lot of ways. I think of even self-image, like self-body image.
100%.
I think of how important it is if you have an example of someone that doesn't say anything negative about their body. Like, I feel like I was given such an amazing example as my mom. Like, never once in my entire life
I was too.
did she say anything about body image, ever.
Yeah.
And guess what? To this day, like, I don't care. It's like there's not a like, I don't feel all these like huge weighing emotions. And I wonder if it's because I wasn't taught to think that way. That wasn't even in my like framework to think like, oh, I need to nitpick this or look at this or it wasn't even there.
Which is such a gift to you, because I think that's probably one of the hardest things that every woman struggles with, especially when you have a screen that you're looking at with all these pictures of all these, a lot of women spend time in that space. And if we're not aware of how it's affecting us or even know that it's affecting us and realizing
and know that we could be unknowingly even passing that down to the next generation without knowing it.
Yes.
It's real. And
it is. And to be able to pattern and be an example for our children of loving ourselves, no matter how we are, how we look. Yeah. Interestingly, we went to, my family, my siblings and I, my parents and all of our spouses, we went to Israel last March, like trip of a lifetime for us as believers. It was amazing. So we went to the Dead Sea. And as you go in, you have to shower off first and shower off after, whatever. So they have like a little changing area. Okay. And it was, my sister and I were just talking about how we haven't really been in, like a locker room situation in a while where everyone's just in a big open room changing. But it was all of the adults, but my oldest two children, who were 16 and 14, they're the oldest grandkids by several years. And so we brought them too.
Oh, that's neat.
Which is like so amazing.
Wow.
Another story. But I'm sitting there with my daughter and she's, in this big locker room with all these women just changing. Like no big deal. Yeah. All these different body types. My sister and I just like got to thinking, like, how often do our children see a whole bunch of different body types
and realize like that's everyone.
That's normal.
That's normal. And it's okay.
And it's beautiful.
And that's how it's supposed to be. Yes.
And it was just this moment of like, you know what? It's really, really sad if our children are spending more time seeing pictures on screens
that are photoshopped
over and
over again.
That are
not even real.
It's not natural or normal for a woman in her 50s and 60s to look like she's in her 20s or 30s.
Yeah.
And women are spending so much. Of course we want to look youthful. Of course we want to take care of our bodies.
Right.
That is a gift. And we're happier when we're healthier. Right. But to see a body that has aged, that has given birth, and to have an appreciation for that kind of beauty is amazing. It's amazing.
Wow. I love that. And I feel like so many people don't see that side of it.
No.
They don't see the true beauty of what a body can do.
Totally.
Does it change? Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And look what it did. It created life.
And
like, what's more important than that? Like, it's amazing to me.
And I understand and have had to do some work mentally for some of the things that have happened to my body because of having children, some things that will never be the same. Right. And know that that's a big hang up for a lot of women.
Right.
But again, choosing what you're focusing on, like you're saying, there is not a greater gift you can give someone than giving them life.
And life itself.
And when you think of it that way, like every single varicose vein or,
or
saggy whatever
mark or anything, it shows like
is worth it.
This gave life.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I look like. That's what I, when I see my stretch marks, it's like those prove to me that I gave life to someone else.
Yes.
And I actually don't see it as negative, because it reminds me that that's what I was capable of doing.
Yeah.
What other thing in all of our existence is to the level of giving life?
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing more, in my opinion, more beautiful than that. You know?
And I think if you asked anyone who was in their 70s or 80s and they're reflecting back on their life, the number one thing the majority of people will say is their family.
Oh yeah.
Their children,
yes,
their spouse, and coming from one of the longest studies that has ever been done, coming out of Harvard, one of the number one indicators of someone's personal happiness is their relationships.
Yes. And you don't get a kid that says, you know, Dad, I know that you would have loved me more if you would have just worked harder on that promotion. That's not what they say. That's not a thing.
No.
You know, and you don't get to the end of life. I feel really, there's the grind of work is so hard. And I feel like,
and it's real.
And it is so real. And when we look at that though, even just putting it in perspective, I see people that reach the end of their lives, and I don't know a single person that says, I just wish I would have stayed more hours at the office. Like, that's not what you say. You know, it's, I wish I would have spent time more with my kids, more with my grandkids, more with the people that I care about and that care about me, you know? Yeah. And so, yeah, it's real.
It is. And if you can have that, I mean, if anyone out there is debating about whether they want to have children or not, or if it's worth it, whatever it's going to do to my body or whatever, like, just go talk to someone in their 70s or 80s.
Yeah.
Just take a minute with them.
Yeah. Someone that's had true life experience.
Yeah.
Those learning lessons through all of life. And you'll realize what is important.
Yeah.
Ask those people, because they've lived a lot of years.
Yeah. And they see it pretty clearly. And coming back to where we started, like, it is the best thing you could do for your personal growth. Yeah. Like, the lessons you can learn, the fun you can have. Yeah.
It's incredible. Okay. So as we wrap things up, really quick, are there any other tools that you wanted to talk about that are like, okay, if there's a mom out there, I just want her to know that she has this tool. She can use this tool in her tool belt, and it can, I'm sure that there's so many, but with like,
there are so many. We've touched briefly on visualization, a little bit on mantras and affirmations, being aware of the space and the choice that you have. I will just mention breath really briefly, something that we take for granted, something that we all do without thinking, but a huge number of physical ailments people deal with, consistent headaches, constant tiredness, some of those things that are just those like nagging, I'm not going to go to the doctor for, but I feel regularly, is usually because they're not breathing
deeply, right? It's just deep breathing.
It's just the like survival mode,
it's the
breathing.
The very shallow.
It's not the parasympathetic nervous system being activated.
Which means, like, from what I've heard, it's like deep belly breathing. Yeah. Is that right?
Like if you think of your diaphragm expanding like a balloon, like you breathe in through your nose.
Interesting.
And then exhale through your mouth or your nose, either way.
I know there's so many different like box breathings and timed. How many seconds are you breathing in? How many seconds are you holding? How many seconds are you breathing out? Like,
and there's different benefits for each of those.
There's not
different
like
breathing techniques.
There's not a like, this is exactly what you should do.
Right.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And we could go into that. We could spend, a whole week just talking about breathing. And there are some amazing benefits. But for our purposes today, literally, if you were to right now, the only thing you change in your life is just setting a time each day to take 3 deep breaths, you will start to notice some marked differences. Just if you think about, we can even try it right here. Like, if you want.
Yeah. Let's do it.
3 deep breaths. Okay. If you want to open your eyes, if you want to close your eyes.
How many seconds doesn't matter. Like what?
Doesn't matter. The sole goal is inhaling through your nose, if you can, if that's accessible for you. If it's not, that's okay.
Why is it the nose? Why is it not through the mouth?
So just the brief science behind it is there's several different things that your nose does for your lungs. it warms the air as it comes in more than it does coming through your mouth, which makes it easier for your body to use. It fully inflates the little things that line, forgetting the scientific word, that lines your lungs, that allows them to fully inflate, which gets all of the oxygen that your body needs.
Yes.
So there's several different things that happen when you breathe in through your nose.
Because I've heard that like consistently.
Yeah.
And I just wondered.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
So try it. Try it through your nose. Just 3 deep breaths.
Just
doesn't matter how many seconds, just on your own timing. Just try 3 of them.
How many times do people, like, we don't do this in a day, you know?
So let me just ask you.
Like already feeling like
yeah, what did you notice just in that, like, 3 breaths?
Like a calming, like, it was this, you know, like even sitting, of course, we're in like a relaxing situation and we're having this awesome talk on motherhood. Even then, like, I feel like I was relaxed, and then you breathe and it's like, like, I don't know, just that.
It's a different feeling, right?
It is.
And to practice it, just like I said, once a day, 3 deep breaths, it makes it accessible for you to use at other points in your day. So that then you walk outside and you notice the sunshine, and maybe you're like, and you take a deep breath, which is going to allow you to receive some of the benefits of that sunshine with your breath, relax your muscles, give you a moment of pause, a moment of clarity. If you think about, like we've mentioned, the world we live in, everything coming at us, plus all that we're dealing with in our mind. Like if you think of a snow globe, I have this glitter jar that I use sometimes when I go and talk to teenagers about this stuff. And you shake it up and it's going every which way.
Okay.
But if you hold it completely still,
then it just settles.
I actually just taught a class yesterday at our high school here locally. And I said, let's see how many breaths it takes before it settles.
Oh.
It was, for some kids, it was 3. For some, it was 4. But if you think of everything that's going on in here.
That's a really neat analogy.
Breath gives you mental clarity. It allows things to settle for just a minute, which, again, talking about that space, it puts you into a better place to act. In a place that is in your best interest, as your best self.
Right.
So if you just practice that once a day, then when, you know, one of your children says something that normally just puts you on the defense, right. It can be like okay, I noticed that you're there, emotion. Thank you for that information you just gave me. I'm going to choose to react this way. And it can start to change. I mean, the physiological benefits of breath, we could, again, go into for so long, what it does for your circulation, what it does for your digestion, like just that little bit of pause goes so far.
So far. That's incredible. I have been, it hasn't been, you know, a super long time, but in the mornings I have my whole morning routine, and a part of it is deep breathing, is just that consistent deep breathe, the first thing I do. And it's that consistent deep breathing, and just having that to start out my day instead of this like frenetic frenzy that you jump out of bed and the kid needs you and you're already like off to the races. Yeah. Even just that. And doesn't take that much time. And there's something incredibly grounding.
Yes.
With that, just those deep breaths.
Totally.
It's so simple. Totally. It's so simple. Why don't we use it? You know, but I think it's just there's not a lot of people that understand it. Yeah. And the people that do understand it that aren't using it, it's probably because it's like, could that really work? It's so simple. Could that really work? Because we think that it has to be some huge, grandeur, life-changing, let's spend $100,000 on to, you know, fix your life. And it doesn't. It's breath. Like, it's something so simple and it can change so much.
But it does take a little bit of practice. It takes... Set an alarm on your phone that says, take 3 deep breaths at maybe, I normally have a break in my day at like, you know, my lunch break or before my kids come home or first thing in the morning. If you don't set some intentional practice time for these tools, and you can't create those new neural pathways. You're going to just keep going where you've subconsciously gone your whole life. Like your brain is wired for these rhythms, these patterns. It's like software. That's what you've been doing your whole life. So you've got to start practicing some of the new ones, but it only takes a little bit of practice. That's the thing that's so beautiful, is literally, like I said, you'll notice just in one time of taking a few deep breaths, like, okay, yeah, that felt really good.
That felt good.
So then add up a few more of those. I mean, mantras and affirmations, I have several that I use daily that I have started just with one. Like, don't try to start 5 new mantras about all your kids at the same time. Just start with one. Usually takes, for me at least, if I'll just say it like 3 times a day, like if it's, you are my golden girl, probably a month, maybe a month and a half, just saying it 3 times once a day to where then it's there. It's there for me. I don't have to practice it anymore. It
becomes a part of that neural pathway.
Totally.
That's just happening.
And maybe the old reaction or the old phrases come first, but then this one follows very quickly behind, so that I can, if I start to think or start to react to like, no, actually, I'm going to choose this one.
Wow.
And you just experience it in a way that.
Whoa. I so want to go into like mantras. And there's so many things we could talk about.
It's true. But that's enough of a taste that like any of you listening could just take one of those and try.
And I think that's important. Like start here. There's so many things to learn. And I want to ask, like, if women are wanting to learn more, if these moms are like, oh my goodness, I didn't know about this world, or I knew a few of these things, but I'm really curious about this. Like, where would you say for them to go to learn more about this?
Yeah. I mean, like we mentioned before, there's so much good literature out there. If there was one of these that piqued your interest, that you're like, mantras and affirmations, or visualization, or breath, just start with a Google search. Okay. Just start. So you'd say, like, or if you heard a book recommended or an article or a guided meditation, just start with one thing and see what piques your interest or what resonates, and practice that. Try that. It's a phrase my dad uses all the time is little by little, a little becomes a lot.
Oh, I like that.
I think as mothers, there's so much we want to change, so much we want to do, forgetting that if you try to do all of it, you can't do any of it well. Just start with one thing. One thing.
Just do that thing. Nail it. I totally do that. I'm like, whoo, and I have all these ideas and everything, instead of like rein it back, drive one thing home, like little by little, and just work on it and work on it and work on it. I love that. Say that again. Little by little,
a little becomes a lot.
I love that. Yeah. That's beautiful. Wow. I feel like you've shared so much with us, and so much good benefit and knowledge, and how motherhood, even in the hard and the in the chaos, and sometimes just the grind, what we're thinking and how we're thinking about it can change everything. And I feel like that is so valuable for moms out there to hear, because we all are in such different situations, and we're all going through so many different things, and yet we can still handle it in a way that can be better than where we're at, just by how we think about it. Totally. So just asking you, what advice would you give as we end this? What encouragement would you give moms out there right now that are listening to you?
First, I just wish I could give all of you a hug and just tell you how amazing you are. No matter what you're doing or not doing, no matter what you're making for dinner or wish you were making for dinner, no matter what, it doesn't matter. Like, you are doing better than you think you are. And just remember that self-care is not selfish. Not the self-care that's like getting your nails done and getting a massage. And I'm talking about like the self-improvement,
deep self-care.
The type of care that fills you, that's life-giving. The conversation with a friend that you both leave inspired. The guided meditation that you take time for in the morning. The walk you go on in nature. Like, those things you do for yourself fill you in a way that allows you to be what your children need, because God sent them to you, not to the neighbor, not to the mom that's on social media doing everything right. He sent them to you. Whether you believe that or not, there's a purpose that they are in your home, and you have something to offer them. Don't forget that.
You make me want to tear up. I'm like, oh, that was so beautiful. That was so beautiful. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Incredible.
What an honor to talk about the most important thing in the universe.
Wow. Motherhood. It's worth it.